So for this week, we're going to be working on building the camera. So the goals that I'd set out for this week is to help you understand where to find the documentation on the camera. As with a lot of Android integration, just knowing where to find the documentation is a big piece. How to change permissions on our apps so that we're allowed to use the camera. And it's not just permissions for the camera. We need permissions to read and write to storage. And show you a little bit how the camera app works in the emulator. Now, the last time I taught the course, it worked better than it does now. So I think with the latest version, the emulator doesn't do the camera piece also well. But if you push your code to a regular mobile phone, it should work just fine. We're not going to look at how to upload files from the web, but we are going to look at how do we store them locally and access them locally. And we're also going to look at, in Firebase Auth, although you can't see it in the Firebase console, there is actually a field there where you can store a URL to an image. So it's a solution that within the app you could have an image as long as you're on the same device each time. So for this week, we've got a small quiz for week 12. It's sort of like the other ones. I think it's 15 questions. You got 30 minutes to do them. This quiz includes some repeat content and some new content for the camera. And there's our slides, and we'll put the videos at the end. And this is the wrong playlist, so I'm just going to get rid of that. I'll put the proper one in at the end. So our content, our slides for this week. Okay, so things that are due left in the course, we basically, I just jumped over that slide quickly because I know the dates were wrong. What we have left in the course is we've got a quiz for this week, we've got the major assignment number 3 due, and we've got the final exam. So we're almost done the whole course. The documentation for using the camera, I put right in here. We can jump to it. And it's decently well done. I'm going to show you a slight variant on this version of how to do it, but if you are interested in playing with the camera apps, this little walkthrough gets everything working for you. We're not going to touch on some of these other areas like recording videos. In terms of controlling the camera, that section's more for like if you want the camera inside of your app. What we're going to do is we're going to create an intent so that the person can click on the camera button and it's just going to launch the pre-existing camera tools that are built into Android, and then it will return an image file. That seems to be the easiest way, unless there's some unique reason you want to really keep people in your tool. So there's lots of documentation there, and then you can see they've got support for other cameras because a lot of these phones now have 3-4 cameras on them, so they have other documentation for there. And we've been using these docs throughout our course, but I don't know if I've always brought you here to go through them. So certainly if there's things you need to know, you can see all the different breakdowns in here. So let's open up our app. I think I have brain fog today. Oh my. Here we go. So I'm just going to hit the run button here. Always good to, before you start the development, make sure that things are working. So what we have right now is our app. If we go to the profile page, it comes up, it shows our terms of service. That's a scrollable thing. We have our username and our email here. And what we want to do is add in the ability to add a user's image, an avatar, into this space. So we're going to need to do a couple things. One, we're going to have to move this part of the text. I got too many lines showing. And then the other thing we'll have to do is put in an image view to show the image. And we'll need some kind of button for adding our image. So let's update the view first, and then we'll add the permissions and whatnot that are necessary to make this work. So I'm going to go into my layout files and activity profile. So in terms of the number of lines showing on the lower right here, I'm going to just click on that text view so I know which one I'm grabbing. And right now I have it set to show a maximum of 20 lines at a time. I'm just going to change that to be 10. And then the other thing that I want to do is add an image view in here, and I'm going to get rid of some of these edit fields I was tinkering with in the last week. So I'll go to design mode, and under common, I'll drag in the image view. And we can just use the avatar default image for now. And I'm going to just center it between all of these objects. And we'll go to split view, and now I can give that image view a name. So I'm going to call it avatar image view. And for the width and height, maybe I'll just use wrap content. I think I had adjusted it, but I noticed in a lot of the assignments when I was marking them that people put fixed sizes to things, and it didn't necessarily work on the device that I was using, so it actually made it a really bumpy user experience. So wherever possible, try not to use fixed sizes. Try to make things relative. All right. The other thing we're going to use is a button. So let's go back to design mode, and I'm going to go to buttons, and I'll choose an image button. I'll drag it in. And we're going to need an image of a camera. So I can just go to the plus symbol here. I think a lot of times I go to the drawable folder. I can just go to the plus symbol and say vector asset. If we click clip art, we can choose a camera. I'm going to choose this one here called photo camera. And I can just leave it all default. Say finish. And I'll choose my photo camera. Say OK. Add. And it doesn't look like it showed up. For some reason it stayed with button star. So we'll do camera. There we go. Now our camera, it's not ideal. It would actually, I want it to blend in. I don't want it to look exactly like a button, whereas right now it does. So let's change the background tint to be, oops, I grabbed the wrong thing. So I'll make it white, and then it's a foreground tint. Let's make it, no. Let's see what colors we have here. I guess we'll make it black. I thought we had done a custom color scheme, but I guess we haven't. Oops. All right. Just going to try oh, maybe it's this one here. Okay. You reverse the colors and it works? Okay. You did that.
Like for foreground and background, I made, where is it? I made one black and the other. Like whatever you had, I reversed it. And like there's a white camera icon in a black square box, but I can see it.
Oh, yeah. No, I had that initially. I'll show you my end game. The my Gradle build's going slow here on my other screen. So it's slightly different because here I had like a blue, purpley, whatever background, but I had the camera just blended right in. So, oops. So it just sort of looks like a little icon floating, which was my goal. Okay, let's see. Oh, there it is. Okay, so let's center this guy. And now we have a layout. I'm going to, I just sort of like my layouts to go top down, so I'm going to just move my image button above the image view. And I'll move all those underneath our email view. Really should make it the same color as our font, but we'll get back to that. All right, so now we have a layout that we can access and use items for, and let's just make sure that the names make sense. So this is our, I'll call it the camera button. We already changed the ID for our avatar, so now we're all set to be able to use the camera. Now, when I was prepping for this lesson, to use the camera, we have to update several little things in several different files. So one of the things I did help learn it was I actually went outside of our application and did just like a standalone project that was just about building the camera. If you're looking to integrate the camera features into your app, I would suggest you do something similar, just because I think it gives you a better understanding of what's doing what. It's very easy to get a little turned around with how the camera functions. So I won't go into detail on how I did my app exactly, but I'll show it to you. So as a way of prepping, I simplified a lot of the goals. So this app that I built really just take a picture. And it's going to load here. The reason I did it, again, was just to try to get my head around all the little things we need to do for... So in this case, I had just a little camera button. When I click it, it opens up the camera app. Now, historically, in the emulator, what you would see here is actually the picture of a room. And for whatever reason, the latest version, I'm not seeing a picture of the room. Yours may. I hope yours does. And you can you hold your Alt key and you move your mouse around, you can look around a room. It's sort of like simulated virtual reality. And when you click the little camera button down here, it will snap a picture of the room. So there we go. So you should normally be able to see this room in its entirety. And then when you hit the checkbox, it brings the image back to your app. So that's what we're going to be building today. And the slides are going to work pretty close to the Google tutorial that I was showing you earlier. So the first thing we have to do is we have to enable the camera permissions. So the camera, by default, you don't have permissions to use the camera. So you can think of it in terms of a device on an Android, the physical hardware. So we have an app. You can't just by default go start using other apps or other physical devices. So in here, this line where it says Android permissions.camera required equals true is the bit where it's going to say, hey, on the Play Store, this app requires you to use the camera. Now, when I was reading the documentation, they said if you can use your app without the camera, meaning it's sort of like an optional piece, you could set that to be false. So like in our app, the permissions, if you want to use our just to set the avatar, you could use the app without setting the avatar. So you could technically put that as false, from what I could read in the documentation. So let's go to our Android manifest file. And I'm going to paste it in, and I'm going to paste it into the chat. So here's the permissions we set for using the GPS in the location area when we did our Google Maps. And that's what we're going to use. I'm just going to paste that into the chat. So if you're watching this asynchronously, you'll have to type it out or grab it from my GitHub. And I put some comments in here. So this read and write to external storage, I can't remember the exact API level. I want to say it's 28, 29. One of those API levels, they got rid of the idea of having an external storage card. But before that, the older devices supported an external SD card. So that's what that's all about, is being able to read and write to external memory. So that's in the Android manifest. I'm going to assume everyone was able to cut and paste that pretty quick. The next part here is, where does a file get stored? So what we do is we set up an XML file, and there's not a lot in it, but we're basically telling it, when we snap a picture, where do we want to put it. So to do that, we're going to go into our resources folder and right-click, a new Android resource file. And under resource type, we're going to say XML. And we're going to give it a name. 1 second here. Okay, so right-click, new, Android resource file, resource type is XML, and in here we're going to call it file_path. We'll say OK. And if you just go to the code view of this, don't worry about this preference screen bit. You can just delete it. I see in the chat, Eric said it was Android 10 Plus. So I believe you're referring to the external storage. So anything that's API 28 and lower, you can use external storage. So in here, we're going to define paths. And the path will be to the external files. And that's all we need here. And I'm going to put you on mute while I sneeze. Sorry for making you listen to my sneeze. I pushed the button, but it doesn't look like it was blinking. That was my quiet sneeze. I 7 out of 10 on the sneeze. Yeah, I can get to 10. I have an incredibly loud sneeze when it's happening. All right, so that sets up a path. So it's just a path that we can reference later. So as you can see, it's not hard to do, but it's a lot of little, not necessarily intuitive steps. So we're going to go back to our Android manifest now. And in here, we have to set up what's called an authority. So the authority is what gives, it's sort of associating those permissions with the actual camera to write to and from a file. And so we're going to add this whole snippet of code here. And this section here, the authority section, what you need to do is make this match your project. So where it says com dot, you're going to need to put in your project information here. And it's going to end with dot file provider. And then down here, this part should be the same. So let me grab that for you, and then you can paste it in. So where we're going to paste it is in our Android manifest, right down here inside of our application area. So I'm going to paste that in. I'm going to put it into the group chat. And what you need to update is this piece here. It needs to match your project. So okay, so this should match your project. So let me know in the chat when you've got it updated. Eric, did you get a lot of sleep last night? Did the baby let you sleep? No. Because you're way faster than Lindsay today. I'm guessing she must have stepped off because she's not even defending herself right now. All right. So how much code have I missed? Oh, that's sorry to hear that. So we haven't missed much code. I've posted pretty much everything in the chat. The last one we added was this section here that's in the chat. And that goes in your Android manifest, just inside of the application tags. Yeah, I've been there. I used to do the red-eye flight from, because our head office was in California. So I used to do the red-eye flight back home, and then I would just go to the office till like noon, 1 o'clock, and crash. It's amazing how much you can still function when you're super tired, but when you crash hard. All right, so there was that section there, and the other piece, Ben, that we did was this inside the Android manifest. So you can paste that in before the application block. And the other thing we set up was under resources, we did new Android resource file. And we did XML as the type. And we called it file underscore path. And you'd have to hit OK. I'm going to hit cancel, so I already have it. And in here, we just typed out that little bit of code. So hopefully that gets you all caught up. All right, so the next thing we need to look at here is inside of our controller class, wherever we're going to be calling this from, we have a few global level variables that we should define. So this request code equals 1000. In the overview in the Google Docs or the Android Docs, they have a similar thing, but they set it to be 1. I've sort of merged together a few different processes here, but as long as that number is consistent, it doesn't seem to really make a big difference. So I'm going to keep it at 1000. And here, whoops. This file photo, that's really just a link to our file. So when the camera takes a picture, it gets put into that path that we just defined, and we're going to use that variable to access it. So let's put that into our activity now. So I'm going to go into the profile activity Kotlin file, and at the top here, we're going to define whoops. I've got a little bit of red here because I removed those 2 elements from the view, so that's fine. I'm just going to get rid of this. I was monkeying around with editing the username last week. That's what that was. Okay, so we've got our variables defined, and then the next thing is when we want to use the camera, we have to check that we have permissions to use the camera. And if we don't have the permissions, what we can do is down here we can request the permissions. So that's what we're going to do now. Oops. So I'm in the onCreate method. So pretty much anywhere in the onCreate method will work. So I'll do binding, and there's my camera button. So when you push the camera button, set non-click listener, and in here we're going to check all of our permissions. If not, we're going to turn them on. So I'm going to paste that in here, and I'm going to paste it into the chat. So I've added that into my profile activity in the onCreate method. So when the camera button's pushed, check the permissions. And you'll have to add this requires annotation. So the onCreate will have this requires API annotation at the top. So now if we run this, we should see that it will ask us for permissions if we push the camera button. So let's give that a try. It won't do anything else, but it'll ask us for permission.
My permission variable is all redded out. Like the manifest.permission.camera, the manifest, like all those permission ones are all read, and I don't know what could have caused that because I imported the manifest.
All right. So
can I just see your imports really quick? Maybe it's just
Sure.
like I imported the wrong one because there was 2 options to import a manifest.
I've got android.manifest.
I have java.util.jar.manifest. So maybe that's the issue. Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Always good to ask questions. Let's sign in. And I'm going to go to my profile activity. So now here's my camera. So I click my camera, and it now shows me, do you want Restaurant Raider to take pictures and record video? So that's giving us access to the camera. So I say allow. And this second one here is basically this read and write external storage. Are we allowed to access the file system? I'm going to allow it. Now that's all that we've set up so far, and it will remember that. So next time you go in, it's not going to ask you for those permissions again, but it does ask you the first time through. So everyone get that working okay? Good to keep going, or did some people run into some roadblocks there? I included this requires API kind of automatically. So if you're doing any kind of red down here with these check self permissions, if you hover over it, it'll suggest you add this requires API and it should work. Eric's got this super slow. I was in my my advanced Java class this morning. Was talking, and one of the students in there had, his computer had an i9 with 32 gigs of RAM. He was like, I don't know, this Android Studio seems pretty quick to me. I guess so. Yeah. So just let me know when it's good to continue. All right, seems to work correctly. Good to hear. All right, so let's continue through. So at this point, we've enabled our app to read and write to the file system. We've got a permission to use the camera. So we need to configure what to do with the pictures before we take them. So I've got some pre-built code here for you, and what happens is when we go to the camera through an intent, and we take the picture. When that picture, when you push the little checkbox, it's approved or whatever, it automatically will call onActivityResult. So this method here automatically gets called when we return from the camera, and then what we're doing is we're basically grabbing the photo that was taken, and we've passed in the actual pathway to that photo, and then we're just going to put that into our image view. So that's all that's really happening here. So let me grab that code for you. Now you're going to see in it that it actually shows some deprecated codes in this else down here. But that's the exact code that they have on the Google store or the Google documentation. So I'm not sure why they're showing it as deprecated, but they're also showing it as the way to do it. So it works. At some point, they're going to get rid of it, I guess. So let me copy that into the chat for you. It looks like it got chopped off. It's missing the last little bit here. It only got up to take. So I'll do it and do a paste bin. So you can grab it from Pastebin, and it's going to go, these are methods, so they actually have to go outside of the onCreate method. So I'll just go to the bottom of my profile activity. I'm going to paste them in there. And our image view has a slightly different name, so that's no problem. We can just update that. Avatar image view. And I'm going to comment out this save profile photo. I'm going to comment that out for now. What that method will do later is it's going to take the location of our file from our file system and store it in Firebase Auth. So for now, you can just comment out what is my line 149.
Should we then also comment out line 148 since 148?
Yeah, you don't really. Yeah, say 147.
147.
Those three all work together, but it'll compile fine. It's just because I haven't given you the method save profile photo yet, it won't compile.
Okay, sounds good.
I've got 10 to 1 on my my clock. Do you want to take a quick break here, or do you want to keep pressing to the point where we get a camera functioning? I'm fine either way. All right, I see a quick vote for get the camera functioning. So there's hunger, there's interest in this, so no problem. We'll keep pressing. It's probably about another 10 to 15 minutes. I know sometimes when people are sitting in a chair for a while. Okay, so here's the big code. This is where we actually take the photo. So in here, this intent is what actually changes your Android device from our application and brings up the camera application. You guys are awesome in the chat. Anyways, we're going to switch to a different application, brings up the file, or sorry, the camera, and this is where we're connecting the result can go back to the specific location in our storage. And remember, in our Android manifest, we had set up an authority. So up here, Android manifest, we had set this authority up in here. That authority is used to write to the file system. It's part of the file provider, or the name of file provider, but it's under that authority. So in here, we actually set up the authority, meaning we have the permissions and everything to write to that spot in memory. And Oops. And then it returns the request code and whatnot. So let's put that into our on-click listener. So I'll just give you this code. Stand by. Oh, missed. Oh no, that's right. Okay. So I put that into, I put the link to this paste bin in the chat. And we're going to add that into, so I'm in profile activity and my onCreate method. I've got my button click listener to make sure we have permissions. So after we've set up the permissions, paste in the right stuff. Now here, this authority has to match what you put into your Android manifest. So the easiest way to make sure that things match is just go to your Android manifest and grab the authority from here. And paste it in here. Okay, so that my line 89 has to match whatever you have in your Android manifest. And I think I have one too many closing brackets there. Okay, so at this point, what should happen is we should be able to use the camera. So let's restart our app again. This time it will not ask you for permissions, or I don't think it should. So it brings up the camera app. Now again, I don't know why mine, when I've used this in the past, it does show me the room, and you can look around the room. If you're pushing this to your actual Android device, it should actually be firing up your camera, and you should be able to see your camera. And if you snap a picture,
like it shows a fake room, or does it show like your actual room? Because I'm getting a fake room.
Yeah.
So, like that. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is, so because it's in an emulator, obviously it doesn't have access to a camera, so it just has a fake room. But if you hold down Alt and you move your mouse around, you should be able to actually see around the room. Kind of like how, like, if you had like a VR headset on, you could look around. But yeah, this is basically what you see. If you use your actual Android phone, it should access your camera, and you should be able to actually see your environment. I think it's a cat. I think it's a dog? I think that one's a cat.
If you hold Alt and then do like a 180 view, like turn of the room, there's a dog like right behind you.
Oh, okay. So on mine, because it's not, I've already snapped a picture. If I go back, it just goes to a black screen, unfortunately. I don't know why my emulator does that. Whenever I've used it before last night, I could see the room. But anyways, so if you snap the picture, and so now that's the image. You click on the little checkbox, that returns it to returns that image to our application. Now, obviously, I've used wrap content, and I think that's too big, so I may need to put some constraints onto that piece of it because it's bleeding into different sections of our app. But we now have successfully used the camera to take a picture, and we have brought that picture into our app. So that's kind of cool. And I think that's a good spot to take a break. When we come back, what we'll do is we'll look at how do we connect that to Firebase Auth so that every time we come in the app, we can see our avatar. And then my game plan was to leave it, we'll be done fairly early today, so to leave it for questions. Not necessarily about the camera, unless you have specific questions about the camera, but more about like your app and getting things finished before the end of the semester. I know some people had questions around issues with deployment and whatnot. And yeah, so it's 12:58. Why don't we take a what does workout do? Let's come back at 12:10, so like a 12-minute break, and